On September 13th, 2018, Ecoviva convened an affiliate event at the Climate Action Summit on mangrove forest protection and restoration. The event took place in San Francisco and virtually via web video conference. I'm Carolo Aparicio, Executive Director with Ecoviva, and I wanted to share some highlights from the program. The program started with a presentation by Ana Luisa Ahern, Program and Policy Director with Ecoviva. She discussed the local, regional, and global significance of mangrove forests, the threat to those forests, and the promise of ecological mangrove restoration.
The Bahía de Jiquilisco is El Salvador's largest national protected area at 101,607 acres. It's a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve as well as a UN-recognized Ramsar wetland of international importance. It's also home to the country and the region's largest remaining intact mangrove forest complex. Unfortunately, El Salvador has lost over 60% of its mangrove coverage since the 1960s and continues to lose mangroves at a very steady rate. Climate change, deforestation, pollution, large-scale agricultural development, and overexploitation of natural resources are among some of the threats to mangrove ecosystems. This loss threatens not only the ecosystem, the environment, but also the livelihoods of the communities that live in and around the forests and depend on them for their survival. So one of the solutions that the communities we work with in El Salvador have come up with to address these threats is called ecological mangrove restoration, or EMR. Now, EMR was sort of pioneered by the Mangrove Action Project, and in 2011, the EMR technique was used to restore a site in the Bay of Jiquilisco called La Llorona. Now, EMR is a different technique to most, which depend and rely on planting seedlings and hand planting a single species of mangrove. EMR instead relies on restoring natural water flows, and it increases the overall success of this type of restoration for large areas of degraded mangroves.
Jose Maria Argueta, Program Manager with Asociación Mangle, then spoke about a successful restoration project in El Salvador.
This is El Llorón in 2011, very degraded area. 2012, we start seeing some little seedlings there. Then 2015, a little bigger than. Then in 2017, we see a big change. So those are the results of community working with scientists together. Just to show you a difference. So the yellow line was in 2011, and then in 2017, this is the line, the red line. So it means that this works. So this is El Llorón. All of this area is getting restored because we made a difference. We bring back the canals, the natural hydrology, and that couldn't happen without the support of the people. Because at the beginning, we started thinking, okay, the canals goes here, but then the community said, no, the canal goes here, all of this way, so they know where to go.
Cultural geographer Dr. Fiona Wilmot joined us from her office in Mérida, Yucatán, Mexico, and spoke about the evolution of a nationwide alliance in El Salvador to protect and restore the mangrove forests.
Ecological restoration of El Salvador's iconic mangrove forests is the keystone of an ambitious national program, promoting land-scale restoration to foster sustainability in the face of catastrophic climate change. Additionally, community groups supported by non-governmental organizations, notably Ecoviva, are driving formation of a grassroots mangrove conservation and restoration alliance, Alianza Manglar, that resonates well with the national program and will hopefully survive any change of government.
Shalini Nataraj, Program Officer with the Ing Foundation, provided us with a donor's perspective on the efforts to protect and restore mangrove forests and how the processes of protecting and restoring mangrove forests is not just an environmental issue, but it's connected with issues of human rights and civic participation.
The Ng Foundation is focused on promoting human rights. So what does mangrove restoration have to do with human rights? So when Carola and I first started discussing this project, he explained to me how the populations that are most impacted have a history of being displaced. And the Mangrove Association, in fact, was founded by refugees who had returned to El Salvador following the civil conflict that had happened. And, so they were sort of forced to live on some of the most degraded land. And now they are the same people who, having fought to make livings and livelihoods in the areas where they had settled, because of climate change and all the issues that have been highlighted before, agribusiness, the pollution of the waters. Now they're faced with probably being displaced again. So to me, that became a human rights issue. So the other aspect is that the project is very, very fundamentally centered on the community and in the community's participation. So that is, the cornerstone of everything that we've been talking about today. And to me, that made a very compelling argument as to why this project would hit several of the areas that the Ng Foundation wanted to address through its philanthropy. So it's not only addressing ecological situations that are, being deteriorated very rapidly, but it is also promoting community resilience. It is looking at the traditional knowledge that communities have and building on that. It is making the community stewards of their own ecosystem and bringing about sustainable livelihoods. And also the ripple effects of a lot of these things are building youth leadership, having early warning systems for ecological catastrophes such as tsunamis or typhoons based in the community. So these were all the reasons why we felt that this would be a good alignment with what the Ng Foundation wanted to do. Having said that, also EcoViva itself. So we are funding EcoViva. We are not directly funding the communities on the ground. So what does EcoViva bring to the equation? So they have a very long-term investment and engagement with these communities. They have stood alongside and accompanied these communities for 2 decades now. And that was important to us. So it wasn't, like a climate mitigation initiative that was going out from Oakland to do something to preserve the mangroves and then return. So there was a deep investment in the partnerships, a deep give and take between the partners. And these are things that we look for when we are looking at what makes a project sustainable, but also human rights aligned.
Amy Kessler with the Climate Action Reserve discussed an emerging financing model that is supporting mangrove restoration efforts in Yucatan, Mexico.
Then, of course, there's also the voluntary carbon market. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but just to state that voluntary carbon market is obviously companies or universities or cities that voluntarily take upon carbon neutrality goals or determined to offset a certain amount of their greenhouse gas emissions voluntarily. And our Mexico Forest Protocol currently functions within this voluntary space. So a number of our projects down in Mexico have had buyers from companies like Disney and the city of Palo Alto, which has really incredible carbon neutrality goals.
Thank you so much for watching. And I invite you to join Ecoviva and our partners in El Salvador so that you can see for yourself the positive impact that your support is having on the mangrove forests and the communities that depend on them. Visit ecoviva.org and sign up for our newsletter and get an invitation to join us on our next trip. See you next time.